Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with his Thursday expert, Mr. Jonathan Twomley. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. Something I thought we should actually talk about today is going back and remembering when we had day jobs, right? W-2s. And we have both made the transition from full-time employees to full-time investors. And lots of people want to do that. So maybe you and I could bat this around, talk about that transition, what went right, what went wrong, what surprised us. Would we do anything different? Just so others who might be thinking about it can kind of learn from our transition. So do me a favor, Jonathan, remind folks what you did for a living and when you made that transition. What year was it?
So I was a corporate lawyer and I did that for about 12 years and I made the transition in 2011.
2011.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. What was your...
So I was an enterprise software salesperson for, I don't know, 20 some odd years. I made my transition in 2018. So several years after you.
Yeah, you've been at it for a while, but you probably were investing longer than I was, right? So
Oh yeah, started in 2001.
Yeah. So my story is a little bit unusual because most people do, I think, what you did, which is they sort of slowly transition from one to another, built up a portfolio.
Yep.
Eventually that portfolio was paying their bills and they're like, the heck with this. I don't need my W-2 anymore.
I'm out of here. Yeah.
My story is a little bit unusual because in my case, I was a lawyer. I was very unhappy, really, really depressed. And that actually prevented me from taking action, right? So because I was in such a funk, all I could think about was just, I got to get out of here, right? But I was kind of like stuck with the golden handcuffs and like I had a family and I really couldn't, even when I would sit around and I spent a lot of time actually kind of like looking at real estate and trying to figure out like, how long would it take me to like replace my income, right?
Yeah.
And that was depressingly,
it was depressing. Yeah.
It was depressingly long to try because I mean, first of all, I was making a lot of money. So I figured, well, I have to, how could I possibly live without making this much money rather than thinking about, well, how much money do I actually need to live on, right? That was one thing that kind of kept me stuck, right, in that job. But I spent a lot of time looking at real estate, just like looking and trying to kind of figure this out. I first thought that, well, maybe I would just go work for like a fund or something because I wanted to get into real estate.
Okay.
And I really didn't think about like, God, I could do this on my own, right? So I started looking around trying to get into like, see if I could work for a fund. And I started like networking with people who were in real estate. And what I kept on running up against, and this is also maybe particular to New York City too, the way sort of the real estate world is here. And also you have to remember like 2010, 2011, like the mindset of anybody in real estate in New York City was that like, there is no real estate outside New York City. Right? Like, maybe if you were like really crazy, you might buy something in Los Angeles or Chicago.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Like if you were like a real
wild man.
Yeah. But like, other than that, like, oh, really? There's across that river over there in New Jersey, they have buildings. I wasn't aware, So
I thought they lived on the ground. What's going on?
Right. Like, aren't they hunter gatherers who are living in huts?
New Yorkers.
Sort of like, so there was the real estate here was just dominated by, like in that world, trying to get into the world of like hedge funds and private equity and that kind of stuff. Like, and then there were like the New York real estate families who are very insular and they just really kind of hire family members. And, so I was going around trying to network and people were saying, Jonathan, you got a great resume, but frankly, nobody's going to hire you in this world because like it's really hard to break into this world and you're 40 years old, right? You're not some like young kid that they can pay nothing and train, right? And you're just, and also this was like right after the Great Recession and they're like, look, there's like thousands of people at your level who are out on the street and they've been doing this for 20 years and they're looking for jobs. So there's really no chance, like just give up is what I was told. Like, give up. And so somebody said to me, look, the only way you're going to break into this business is if somebody takes a liking to you and wants to partner with you, like become a partner.
Okay.
And I never really thought of that. And then sort of lo and behold, a couple of things happened at the same time. One of which was I ran into this person who was like, hey, why don't we partner? I'm starting a real estate investment business. Why don't we partner? And then the other thing that happened was I lost my job, right? So I got canned at my job as a lawyer because the work had just dried up, and they'd been waiting for basically for 2 years for the work to come back, paying me the whole time, and they finally decided that, you know what, we don't think this work is coming back. We don't want to pay this guy $300K a year, sit around, do nothing.
Yep.
So they let me go, and I was. I had like a pretty good severance package and stuff, but so I was out, and I was so burned out from law, and I hated it so much. I was like, I can't go back. Like, I don't have any stomach to interview. Like, I was like thinking, like, I don't even know how you get a job. You go to an interview for a job and you don't want the job.
Yeah, yeah, they might be able to sense that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just like I don't even know how I'm going to interview for law jobs, right? Because I don't want it, right? Yeah. And so I had this. I lost my job, and I had this person saying, "Let's be we become partners." And then I was like, "Well, I don't really know what to do about this person. I need some advice." So I kind of went to a couple of my high net worth friends and said to them, "What do you think about what this woman is saying?" Right? And they said, "I don't know. Let me meet her." So I sort of paraded her around in front of a few of these people, and what they all said was, "Oh, well, if you want to do this, I'll give you money. Like, I'll invest." So they were kind of they were like impressed with the pitch, right, or what she was proposing. So I was like, all right, maybe I should give this a shot, because I've got like, I'm free, right, of the job. I got this offer on the table. People are going to give me money, and I did have savings. Like, I saved up enough money that I could afford not to work for a while. Like, so that was. So I hadn't built like a portfolio, but I built savings, and I had some runtime.
Right. Just, you don't have to answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Kind of a year, kind of okay for a year.
Yeah, like actually a couple of years. Like,
okay, good. All right.
Like,
makes sense.
I mean, if I ran it down to zero, right? I mean,
so you could really give this a shot. It wasn't like you had a 90-day clock or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I had some runtime for this, and so I just kind of jumped in with both feet.
Awesome.
Without really knowing anything about the business. And then the funny thing that happened is kind of like the first sort of official meeting that we had when we had already agreed to become partners. I had just assumed, because that was what everybody around me was talking about, that we were going to buy like brownstones in Brooklyn, right? What everybody was doing, right? They were buying brownstones and rehabbing them. And I just assumed like that's what we were going to do. And she said, no, that's not what we're going to do at all. We're going to go to Louisiana, and we're going to buy these like 100-unit buildings. And I was like, that's insane. 100 units, like, how are you gonna, and then it's like, well, 100 units in Louisiana costs like what a brownstone.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same number.
Right. And plus it's a whole lot more profitable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like way more profitable, and you're getting cash flow. And like, so she kind of spelled out the business and kind of taught me the syndication business.
Nice.
So I just jumped into it that way. And then so what then happened, I mean, this was not easy. Like, we didn't start getting deals right away. It took us 6 months just to get brokers to talk to us, right? Okay. And then we got a couple of deals under contract, and we wound up losing the deals because it was a bad lending environment, and Louisiana is not exactly. I mean, now the lenders will lend anywhere, but back then,
2011, 12, it was a different world.
Lenders who were just like, they're not really sure about that state,
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, high unemployment, low income.
Not the common law, right? I mean, like the civil code, like all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, the wrinkles. Yeah,
they were just like, Louisiana, not so sure. And so we lost a deal. I mean, it was very painful. We had like all these due diligence costs in the deal that we had to eat. We got our deposit back, but we still had, we were on the hook for a lot of money. So here it was like, not making the money I was expecting to make from this deal. I was actually now out of pocket, and it hadn't been paid for a long time. It was running down my savings. So I was like, man, what am I going to do? So I went back to one of those buddies of mine, and it was like, man, I think I'm going to have to go back to being a lawyer. I mean, this is,
Oh no.
and he said, yeah, slow down there. How about you and I become partners? And so it kind of like treated it like a startup and got some essentially like, angel funding so I could keep going, and then and that's how I formed my company now. And,
Got it.
and started getting some traction, started getting some deals done, and kind of the rest is history.
And your first deal you did was South Carolina?
South Carolina, 102 units.
Nice.
I think the smartest thing that I did in the original partnership I had was that we never used any investor money for upfront costs.
Oh, nice.
We used our own money. So even though those deals didn't go through, the investors, they just lost the opportunity to invest in the deal. They didn't actually lose any money.
Right.
And so
that's good.
Yeah. So and actually one investor had transferred all this money from Japan to the US, and then the dollar went way up against the yen, like right after so he made money on the.
No, he made money on the deal on currency
without even investing in real estate. So
that's funny.
It was so it worked out fine. Like I wound up coming away from that with enhanced credibility with my investors, and I'd also learned on my own dime, right? Yeah. So by the time I formed my own company with my second partner, I'd learned the business, and I'd spent the money to learn it on my own, and made myself a lower risk, right? Yeah. By doing that. So that's why that friend was willing to back me in the business, so I had some additional runway so I could keep going without having to go back to work. So it's a little bit of an unusual story, and I don't know if you want to take a break now. But
no, yeah, I think I want to point out a couple of lessons, because again, I think a lot of folks are in that situation. Certainly not everybody's an attorney, but lots of people hate their job, right? So that's a consistency. I think there's a couple of things in your story that I hope others are preparing for, right? Lots of you watch my channel, follow Jonathan's Facebook group. You have interest in real estate. It's just that thing, like that itch you have to keep on scratching. I think there's a couple of things that allowed Jonathan to kind of figure it out. One is he had that emergency fund or living fund or whatever you want to call that, right? Run rate, I think he called it, or runway. Make sure you have that. I have met too many people that preach burn the boats. I'm sure you've heard this analogy. And there are the odd instances where that works. It's not a trend that you could bet on, in my opinion. Best case, you make really bad decisions and maybe you get lucky, right? Some people just do win the lottery. Some people do win it in the casinos, but most of you don't. It could lead to bankruptcy, divorce. I've seen it do lots of things. I'm not a burn the boat guy. Not my thing. Second, you did not rely on investor funds, right? You talked about losing probably tens of thousands of dollars doing these inspections and all of these things. Yeah. Too many people, and I hear them all the time. It's all leverage, It's always they almost look at it as a badge of honor. I have none of my own money in the deal.
Right.
Yeah, sure. That works when the tide's rising, but when the tide goes out, it only takes one domino to fall to crush it all. Don't do that. This is a game. You can make work optional in a decade. I talk about all the time. Don't stop doing the quick hit. It's just stop. Don't do it. Yeah. Get some of your own money in the game. If you don't have any, live below your means, get a second job, get a side hustle, something.
Listen, when I was a lawyer, and obviously I recognize that that's a kind of a unique thing, and like being a lawyer on Wall Street in New York, it's a high paid job, right? So, but even within that world, I was the sole breadwinner. My wife was home with the kids, and I was saving half of my salary, right?
Nice.
And because we lived like really well, within our means, and we didn't own a car.
That's not normal. I mean, yeah. I got to tell you, I work in high tech sales, and I would go to QBRs, which stands for quarterly business reviews. Everybody in that room would make more than 200K, and I guarantee you 90% of them live paycheck to paycheck.
Well, listen, so here's the thing, right? So here, we bought a very modest apartment. We bought, we didn't want to have a big mortgage. We we didn't own a car for years because we didn't really need one in the city, right? We didn't go on like expensive vacations, and we traveled, we did stuff we liked, but it wasn't like we just were not extravagant people, right? And so, but then I would listen to my colleagues in my office talking about how they had no money. And it was like, wait a minute, I'm like just every month I'm just banking this money, and you're telling me you have no money, but like you're a lawyer and your wife is also a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. You got two incomes.
You're making literally double what I'm making, and you have no money. Like, I don't even know how that works.
How
Right?
does that work? Yeah.
I mean, but then you dig into it, and it was like, you know, they had a huge house, they had a second home.
Yeah, the second home. Yeah.
They didn't rent out. They both drove Audis. The kids were all in private school.
Oh yeah.
Right? It was like they literally like they could not keep up. They were spending every cent that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was like, this makes no sense to me. And if you're in that position, you really do have the golden handcuffs where you're stuck. Like you're even stuck if like one of your spouses loses a job. Right. So, and my way of thinking was like, I'm miserable and I want to quit. So I need, I got to make, because
I need some cash.
I may just like lose my, and just walk off the job one day because I can't take it anymore. And I don't want to starve, right? So, so I made sure that like I had a big reserve fund for myself, and so that's what enabled me to do it, right? That's what enabled me to then, when that opportunity came along, I had choices. Right?
Awesome.
I had the ability to choose. But I did want to say something else, which was, now if I look back on my life, would I do it the same way again? And the answer is no. Like there are a number of things I would do differently.
Tell us.
I would have started investing while I was still working, because like having that job was such a good source of cash to invest with, right? I cut off that spigot, right? And I could have built myself a really nice, but small, but nice portfolio for myself.
Yeah, you could have put that on the side. Yeah.
Yeah, on the side, and then had that to rely on when I went out full time, right? So I didn't do that, right? And that was, some of that was me. That was like my headspace then. I didn't realize I could do it. I also didn't realize I could invest outside New York City.
there were 49 other states.
Yeah, but I didn't even know how you would go about doing that.
Yeah, I understand.
I didn't even know how like you would buy a house somewhere else and how you might manage it from a distance and any of that stuff, right? I just kept on looking around going, well, I can't afford to buy a brownstone here, right? So what, and I was going to go, well, I guess I'm done, right? So, I'm done, so I would definitely, if I had to do it again, I would really want to build something on the side, first. And also just for the experience too, like getting the experience of doing it. And I think then the other thing I would do differently is I don't think I would go for such big properties right off the bat, because that means you have to rely on more other people. You need people to sign the debt for you. Yeah. You need all that and I just remember it was like, now there's this whole industry of people who will sign in the debt for you. But when I started out, man, I mean, people didn't want to do it. Like they were, and it was like, it's non-recourse. Like there's no risk here. They're like, yeah, but still, I don't want. And even my partner, like he was signing on the debt, like kicking and screaming. He didn't want to do it, right? And so I wished that I had, if I understood sort of how commercial lending worked, and what I would have done was go for smaller assets that I could get the debt for myself, like my own balance sheet, and then just build it up from there. Because what I've seen is that you can start, especially if you stay with properties that you can finance yourself, plus you have a job that's producing some cash for you every year, so you can put a down payment together. Or maybe if you go a little bit, like you and a friend put the down payment in together and you split it, right? You can build up a good net worth in 5 to 10 years.
For sure.
Right? And so, if you're not like me, where you're like, like, I mean, I was going to work, like part of me was wishing like I'd get hit by a bus and then the city of New York would pay me $10 million, right?
Oh no.
That's how
that's not good, Jonathan.
It's not good at all, right?
That's not good.
So, I mean, look, depression is a horrible thing. And
yes.
So if you suffer from depression, I've been there. Like I totally get it. Yeah, I was there for years. But but yeah, so
I have just a crazy left field question. Sorry to interrupt your flow. If you could go back and be your, I don't know, your 22-year-old self, would you get the law degree?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not have done that. I would have done something totally different. Not even sure what I would have done, but I would.
But you could say that with confidence. Nope.
Oh, absolutely. I would not have gone into law. So.
I would say in my kind of second circle of friends, I know a dozen lawyers/attorneys, and I never really understood the difference if there is one. Some of y'all are really, you really freak out when I call you one and you want to be called the other, but I don't get it.
Oh, really? I've never drawn a distinction between them.
Yeah, I don't understand, but yeah, I got a buddy of mine. It's like, don't call me a lawyer. I'm an attorney. I'm like, what the hell is the difference? Anyways, you have the degree, so call yourself what you want. But I don't know a happy lawyer.
Yeah, I don't know many. I know a couple.
Okay.
But they're few and far between.
I'm glad there's some. I'm glad
there's some. I mean, I got like a buddy from that I went to actually both college and law school with, and he loves it. Awesome. But he's very unusual. And one of my mentors is a lawyer. I mean, he loved it, but he actually, I remember him telling me, like, he and his wife were both lawyers. They both liked their jobs, but they told their children not to become lawyers because they said, look, we recognize that we're happy, but we're unusual.
And exactly. We're the odd duck.
Yeah. And so we think the likelihood that you guys will like being lawyers is probably pretty low. So they didn't forbid them from becoming lawyers, but they really made it clear that they didn't think it was a great idea.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Well, thank you for doing this story with us. We got one more exciting topic. Before we get there though, how can people find you or follow you?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of ways. I'll run through them real fast. There's the multifamily investment community on Facebook. Just search for that on Facebook and join the conversation with the other 12,000 people in the group.
Yeah, 12,000 is amazing.
Would like to, if you'd like to, learn how to do this on your own, I have a great mentoring program, which is very affordable. And you can go to multifamily launchpad, all one word, .org/join and see all the details there. And then finally, if you would like to just invest passively with me and get in on, my next deal, just Google Two Bridges Asset Management, and it'll pop right up. Then you can fill out the investor form that's there on the website.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
You're welcome.